Alright, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast, BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. On this channel recently, we've been talking a lot about the New World Order, the remnants of the British Empire, conspiracy theories attached to the deep state and the shadow government. And one of the ways that all of this stuff gets unified is through Alex Jones. He might be the single largest conspiracy theorist of this generation in the United States of America, and he's one of the ways that a lot of people find out about what's going on with all of these subjects, to be honest. But the thing is, we've mentioned an entire upload about him on this channel, which was called Alex Jones: Truth or Lies, and we wanted to find out, is he actually telling the truth about what he says on his show? And not just on the InfoWars channel, the now defunct InfoWars YouTube channel had a lot of other things like live streams and harassing Hillary supporters at political rallies. But this is not so much about truth versus fiction, like is Alex Jones telling the truth or not. Today I think we could have a very sort of interesting examination of something that Alex Jones might be doing that is not really helping very much, or something that he is majorly overlooking. And that is, if he's going to talk about the New World Order or the deep state, he always tries to center it on the globalists, the tyrants, the social engineers. He's always bringing it to the people, which globalists would be people. Social engineers are people. And he's trying to get his audience, and anyone who's just listening to him or anyone familiar with him, angry at these people. But the thing is, though, that will not break the cycle. That will not alter the mechanism by which these things function, because the people are not important. Once again, if we're going to look at this from actually something as an existential issue, like what is really existing, we have to kind of be honest about what it really is. Yes, there are financial influences on our federal government. Yes, there are secret workings of the federal government. We mentioned that recently during the Kevin Ship upload about classified and top secret information, not to mention covert actions of the CIA. And they also talk about how governments are extremely vague, such as the CIA they can conduct their covert actions on an as-needed basis, which is, just giving them kind of like a blank check, and they can do the carte blanche issues where they're just running around the world destabilizing other federal governments, and other nations get pretty much ruined in the process, or at the very least they destabilize a nation and a certain individual is installed who is kind of just a tyrannical individual who just wreaks havoc upon the people. And they went through a lot in Iran, not to mention Chile with overthrowing of Salvador Allende and the installation of the Pinochet regime. And a lesser known example would of course be the overthrowing of the government in Chad and installing the reign of Hissène Habré during the Reagan administration. And that was actually one of the very first things that happened during the Reagan administration, and the security force for that tyrannical regime in Chad was trained in the United States of America. So it's like, these people are doing covert actions, yes, but we're not going to break the cycle unless the American people are able to recognize what really is going on. And the people are not important. It's not about putting a face on it. When you put a face on an issue, some people might understand it better, but at the same time, that's just a caricature. That's just like personalizing it in some sort of way. What the American people really need to do is to use the democratic process to kind of wake up and realize that the United States government is doing things around the world that are extremely destructive for the benefit of powerful individuals. It's not so much about the money, and it's not only about people in office. I mean, the representative from the 15th District of California, just pulling one off the top of my head, Eric Swalwell, let's pull him up there. He isn't like the linchpin of the entire federal government. It's not just about power, and it's not just about money. It's about having this entire structure that is centered on oligarchy, and it's a structure. The oligarchs are meaningless. It doesn't matter what their names are. It's about having this dynamic in our society that is kind of dragging down human civilization. Every decision that is kind of done is gone through this process, which is benefiting the oligarchs, and it is kind of depreciating the value of human life for the people. It's like that expression in a casino, the house always wins. Well, that's kind of what's going on with our power dynamic in Washington, D.C., and in New York, of course, with the stock market. But Alex Jones will talk about this, but he always wants to bring it back to the kind of actions of certain individuals, get people mad at the Rockefellers, get people mad at Zbigniew Brzezinski, as not to mention all of the presidential administrations prior to Trump. I mean, very much so on Obama, and even George W. Bush for ages, and it just you can even find the videos of Alex Jones getting angry at local politicians back in the 90s, on public access television. Albeit, though, that stuff was good because, once again, that's using media and it's using someone's own perspective to challenge the system and to try and hold somebody accountable. I mean, is that going to completely eliminate corruption from politics? No, but it might solve one of the problems. This political world just seems like the Hydra. You cut off the head and then another one will grow, or sometimes two of them will grow back. But the thing is, though, we have to do something. And we have to raise awareness of some things. And I would really want to just stress that the people involved with the oligarchy are not that important. I mean, it's not about just blaming things on the globalists and blaming things on social engineering. I mean, it's more just about recognizing the kind of circular mechanism that is going on in the American political world. How it's just like the oligarchs start with the power, they put stuff out into Congress and the mainstream media and gets involved in Facebook debates, and everything just comes back to the oligarchs. New people can be absorbed in the oligarchy too, like all the previously mentioned names from different generations. We're going to be dealing with Zuckerberg and Bezos, as well as people like Bill Gates even. But the thing is, though, to kind of break this cycle, and this is just coming from some nobody on the internet like me, it's going to have to just get people to start paying awareness to the process as opposed to the people. I mean, because when you present it as just like blaming it on the globalists, it gives the impression that, there must be this people sitting around a boardroom table somewhere in England masterminding these world events and planning false flag terrorism. I mean, I can't really comment too much on those, but it's like the false flag terror theories are just sort of like, I don't know how practical they are because I don't really find the presentations that I've heard from Alex Jones and his contributors on that too convincing. It's just like, those things are definitely not as convincing as some of the stuff, just to talk about the New World Order, just to say that there are financial influences on the American political system that are not coming from the politicians. Sometimes politicians aren't speaking on their own behalf. The thing is, though, when we're much younger, when we're just first starting out, taking high school civics and stuff, we're completely aware of this. Say if you're in the social studies classroom or the civics classroom, everybody knows that, politicians are just bought and paid for, ha ha ha. But now that you get a little bit old, you get into your late 20s, you get into your 30s, and then you just see people like, well, I bet Joe Biden really cares about women, so that's why he's doing this particular decision. They start watering things down in the mainstream media. And it's like the kind of youth have that sort of no-nonsense objective approach when they're just like, no, Joe Biden does not care about women. Joe Biden does not make decisions like that. Joe Biden is doing things because he is an opportunistic, power-hungry individual that will sell people out at any possible moment. He will be the face of sort of a mass amount of financial powers, and Hillary Clinton barely tried to hide it. One of the reasons why Hillary Clinton lost the election in 2016 is I mean, more than half the country knew that Hillary Clinton was someone who was just a complete deep state shadow government president. She barely tried to hide it. And you really see this from her actions as Secretary of State, the destabilization of Libya. One of the most horrendous things that has been done in the last 15 years in the United States government. And I say that because we're still dealing with the consequences of that to this day. The entire nation has been just sort of torn to shreds, and just an increase in just all sorts of chaotic military involvements and terrorist involvements in the nation of Libya. And who was behind that? Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, not to mention pulled into this cycle, this military industrial congressional complex cycle that influenced that decision. And the MSM gets pulled in because they only present one side of it as opposed to the other side of it. I mean, one of the ways that we really can address this is we are going to need more good actors in the situation, people who are going to come forward. And the CIA was heavily involved in Angola, and I mentioned John Stockwell previously, who was trying to expose secrets of the CIA in his books In Search of Enemies and The Praetorian Guard. And he says that his operation in Angola was shut down because an academic in Angola, an American professor, figured out what the CIA was doing, and he alerted the senator of California at the time, and the senator, went to the Senate floor and took action, and they were able to shut down the CIA operation in Angola. Democracy is broken, but it is not yet dead. There are sort of balances of power that are still in place that we can use. And you are going to need good actors, you're going to need people who are investigating these issues, and you're going to need people who are going to be coming forward. But the first and foremost thing I would just really want to share is a point that I've mentioned previously on this channel. And if you would just were to share anything with your family and the general public, it would just be that to break this type of mechanism, this type of circular cycle of destruction, of outside financial influence, and governments running wild with top secret and classified information, the secret workings of the government, the shadow government by definition. If you want to break the cycle of the deep state and the shadow government, first raise awareness that there are 5 branches of government, not 3. Executive, legislative, judicial, the electorate. That's you, that's me, everybody. The voters have power to make difference. They have the power to make a difference. And number 5 would be the CIA, because they don't receive an enormous amount of examination. I don't ever want to hear that the CIA is an executive function or something like that. Bill Clinton, by his own admission, said that he could not get basing rights in the northern republics in Central Asia to go after Osama bin Laden because the CIA wouldn't certify it. Well, the president can't control the CIA. They are their own branch of government. There are at least 5 branches of government out there. There might be more than that, but that would be the first and foremost thing that we would need to present to the entire world. If I just had this giant megaphone that could be blasted to every household in the country, all the way to Barrow, Alaska, we would want to say something like that. And it's addressing the issue from that cause, I believe. Once again, I'm some nobody on the internet talking behind a black box, that would definitely have a larger impact than just kind of pounding your chest and shouting at, the globalists. They're putting chemicals in the water, and they're turning the frogs gay. I don't necessarily know too much if that's actually helping. First and foremost, Kurt Eichenwald of Newsweek kind of approaches this in a very interesting way. He's not the best commentator, but when he wrote his piece on conspiracy theories, it was rather interesting because it's sort of like the gay frogs thing on Alex Jones is somewhat kind of notable because it follows a very basic mechanism. You can take a true fact and then explain the vast conspiracy, and that is one of the ways that's almost not exactly a logical fallacy, but it's a persuasion tactic that is frequently done by conspiracy theorists. Say, for example, that there is this chemical in the water. What's it called? Atrazine or something like that? Was that the gay frog chemical? I don't even remember 100%. Okay, so you got this chemical in the water called atrazine. All right. And maybe you couldn't take even another fact. Maybe some frogs are becoming sterile or something like that. And then, that must be put there by the globalists so they can make men more masculine and men more feminine, women more masculine. And they're trying to decrease the population in a eugenics movement. I mean, it's like you take a real fact and then you spread the vast conspiracy. That would be something that could possibly be a type of persuasion and manipulation tactic about spreading disinfo. But I mean, I don't really subscribe to anything about Alex Jones and his gay frog theory. The stuff we really wanted to talk about today was some of the New World Order, former British Empire, and, well, the some sort of aspects of globalism which he tries to identify, but he gets angry at the people. Let's look at how our balances of power, our system of checks and balances, is being manipulated. And one of the biggest ways that it's being manipulated is through the CIA. And one of the biggest ways that it is being manipulated is through the FBI. Here's one thing: the FBI uses their administrative power to cover up their own mistakes. Does that sound like an outrageous statement? There's your conspiracy theory. They did this so blatantly after 9/11 and they were exposed. Time magazine did the cover story, the whistleblowers edition. We've already talked about that before. It's just sort of recognizing that when you have these massive agencies and they are conducting secret actions, and they also use their administrative power to hide that. So it's like that is the kind of real issue that we can deal with about how the American people are being ripped off. The American people are being cheated, and it only takes a matter of time before extremely powerful outside entities begin to influence the government. The private sector can move the public sector to its advantage. And we were talking about George Soros and Haim Saban and just about all the mega rich powerful entities. What about Goldman Sachs going to the White House how many times during the Obama administration? Not to mention that Donald Trump refused to sever ties with Goldman Sachs. He said he would at first, and then he brought the guy from Goldman Sachs to his campaign rally and was bragging about it. These people, this is not a partisan issue. This is not a bipartisan issue. This is just a humanity issue versus a broken system issue. And it's like you got to really just look at, do you want to continue the same old status quo?